What is up, guys? Media Master Menard here today, bringing you another video. In this one, we're going to talk about something I've been kind of promising on this channel for a while now, and that is, what is it really like to be a Division I football player? And so I've talked about on this channel before quite often that I was a player at North Dakota State University. I played defensive end, number 96. I uploaded my highlight tape to this channel. You should check it out. It's actually running in the background right now, so you can just keep on watching this video and kind of see what it looks like. And I showed my story of how we got invited to the White House by President Trump, but today, like I mentioned, we're talking about what it's really like to be an NCAA athlete. And what made me want to make this video is that one ad that the NCAA had running about, come join like the NCAA, be a student athlete, and it was so cheesy, and everyone knew that's not really how life is as a student athlete. So I figured, why don't I just make a video explaining what my experiences were like and kind of give you a general idea of what it's like to be a Division I football player and the kind of the commitments and what life in general is like. So let's get into this video, guys. I've got a lot of information to share with you today. Please stick around, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you like what you see, but let's get into it. So yes, before you guys flame me, yes, my hair is a little messy at the roots. I'm getting a retwist tomorrow actually, so I should be all set. But let's talk about the recruiting process as a football player and how it's a very, very unique experience, and one that I think is kind of not good for kids at a young age. And so the biggest thing about the recruiting process is there's a lot of butt kissing and there's a lot of BS and posturing and people trying to make power plays, I guess. So it's very interesting. I mean, when you're going on these recruiting trips, every other athlete is trying to look hard and kind of puff up their chest and look cool to each other. And I did it. I mean, everybody did it. We thought that was the thing to do, kind of. Obviously, I don't think coaches really pay much attention to that. But what they do pay attention to is there's a lot of playing off each other. I guess schools, you kind of play them off each other, it seems like. That's the normal thing to do now. If you really want to offer from somewhere, it's not that abnormal for kids to kind of be like, hey, I've got an offer from here. Are you going to offer? And they don't really say it that directly, but they say it nonetheless. And I think the biggest thing that's really getting kind of toxic is this culture on social media where every recruit posts if they get just like a camp invite. That doesn't even mean anything, but kids are posting camp invites, guys. And they're also posting like every offer they get and count it up like, well, this is my 17th offer from the University of Kansas. And I mean, it's really going to these young kids' heads. And I mean, with this much love the coaches are showing you and how much they're kind of gassing you up and hyping you up, I mean, yes, it really is going to go to a kid's head. And it went to my head as well. And that kind of leads us into our next topic, which is kind of freshman year fall camp. And so you're coming in with this huge head right now, man, like, I'm really good, these coaches all wanted me here, I'm going to be one of the best football players this school has ever seen. And then you get there and you are just like, oh my gosh, these guys are incredible. You're playing with guys who are not only 5 years older than you, they've been in the program for 5 years, so they've been training specifically for football for 5 more years than you. They've been learning the ins and outs of the schematics of the offense and the defense, both, for 5 years, and you're just coming on, you have no idea what's going on. So that is just kind of one of the biggest shocks you'll ever get as a student athlete. Before school has even started, you're kind of like, man, I'm not sure if I belong. And so this shock is compounded with the fact that these are just really long days. At least they used to be before the NCAA stepped in and changed the rules a little bit. But back in the day, we used to have two-a-days every other day. And the days we didn't have a two-a-day, we had a lift with that day. And there was full pads every single day, every single practice. You didn't even check what was on the schedule because you knew it was full pads. You knew you were going to be out there grinding. And what makes it really crazy is the fact that you were doing something from 6:30 a.m. until 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the nighttime. So I mean, it's not nearly as bad nowadays because the NCAA has banned two-a-days and you can't wear pads multiple days in a row. But man, I am telling you guys, almost every single football player at NDSU at some point thought about quitting. And I'm sure there's every other school is the same way. I mean, it is truly a grueling test when you first get there. I mean, it's just one day after another, and you feel like you're disconnected from society because all you're doing is living, breathing, eating, sleeping, football. I mean, you wake up, you go to meetings, then you go to practice, then you go to more meetings, then you go to your lift or your second practice, then you go to more meetings, and then you go to even more meetings at night. I mean, I am not even joking, you guys. This is legitimately what the schedule is. It is so much football all day for the entire month of August, and it is just a culture shock as a freshman when you first get there. It's incredible. And even your second year and your third year, it is really hard to go through fall camp. It's something that no one's really looking forward to, but you know the work does have to get done. I mean, this is really stupid, but I'm going to keep it a buck with you guys. When I was first here, or I guess first at NDSU, I was so like dreading practice. I mean, a couple of us joked around one day at practice like, hey, I wish I would tear my ACL so I didn't have to do the rest of camp. And of course, I jinxed myself, and I ended up tearing my ACL later in my career because I said something stupid like that. But that's just karma. It seems like that's just the way things go. I also would be stupid and like drive around campus in between meetings and meals and stuff without wearing a seatbelt, like thinking maybe I'll get in a crash that's minor and I'll be hurt and can't practice for the rest of camp. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy, guys, but I've talked to other teammates of mine. They have said the same exact thing to me. Like, I thought the same thing, Greg. Like, this type of stuff, this is the stuff that goes through your head when you're just going through such a grind. And it's just day after day, and so many people quit because it's just so hard and they just leave the team forever. And some people, I know that I've seen a person quit after one day of fall camp. I mean, it is that depressing, and kind of the outlook is very, very grim. But I think those who stick around, they went through the weeding out process, and I couldn't be happier that I stuck around. I mean, you learn so many life lessons, not only from fall camp, but the game of football in general. So let's kind of talk about life in the dorms now, and let's just say freshman year after camp was over and we walked to the dorms and we saw everybody else moving in. I mean, we were so excited to see new faces and different people. I mean, after seeing the same dudes for so many days in a row, I mean, let's just put it this way, guys. Fall camp eyes are a real thing, and what that means is basically people who aren't that attractive to you. I mean, you'd see some girls that really you normally wouldn't think are that attractive, but they would be dimes in your head. I mean, it's crazy what that type of grind of camp, a month's worth of work, can do to your head. It's crazy. And I think just having something else to do besides football was incredible. When we were just like, this is so cool, we're just hanging out with people, we've actually got a little bit of time. And I do think that changed a little bit as the year progressed. There's definitely some struggles of being an athlete in the dorms, and the first one is that, I guess the norms, that's what we call people who weren't in sports, the norms kind of didn't have any sleep schedule or anything that they had to adhere to, really. I mean, they could go to class and then just take a nap afterwards and kind of do whatever they wanted whenever they wanted and just hang out whenever. And that was sometimes kind of a bad temptation as an athlete, because you need your sleep, you need to be on a set schedule and get things done, but sometimes you couldn't because you were a little bit distracted and wanted to hang out with people in the dorms, or you would run into the case of people just being really loud at night, and it was kind of frustrating, and there was quiet hours, but hey, it's the dorms. No one really listens to quiet hours, and sometimes people would just randomly come into your room, and it was just like, yo, I'm sleeping, it's like midnight, I've got to wake up early for some stuff tomorrow, please leave me alone and let me get my sleep. But I mean, the social aspect of everything was really cool, and there was a lot of fun things to do in the dorms. I mean, sometimes I feel like I missed out on some of the dorm experiences because I was a football player, but I feel like it was a really fair trade-off, and I gained a lot more unique experiences from being a football player. So now we can kind of talk about what life was like during the season. And it was definitely a grind, especially when you have to go to meetings after your class, then after meetings you go to practice, and that doesn't usually get done until 7:30 at night, and that time left over is usually your homework time, and you kind of do homework until you're done, I guess. That's kind of the best way to put it. And it usually wasn't too bad, actually, because you had a little bit of free time if you scheduled your classes right throughout the day to either take a nap, or a lot of people went in to go watch film, including myself. We'd go in and kind of watch film on either the opponent or yourself. Maybe when you're younger, a couple times a week, but when you get older and you're more invested in the program, I mean, you're usually going every single day. And I think what makes it just feel like such a grind is, I mean, you're going 11 or 12 weeks without a week off or a day off, and you're just kind of going continuously. And the fact that we play our games on a Saturday means that it's just day after day, and you get Sunday off, and you're usually doing a bunch of homework trying to get ahead for the week so you can really focus on football for that week. So I mean, they can get really long as the weeks go on towards the end of the regular season, and you're really playing for that bye week so you can have some alone time with your family on Thanksgiving weekend. As far as campus life is concerned, during the season there was quite a few positives and there was some negatives. Obviously, one of the big negatives to start off with is if you had any group project, I mean, your team was going to want to work on it usually around 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and you're obviously busy during that time, so a lot of your team members could get quite annoyed with you if you were trying to, let's say, work on a project after practice. A lot of them would be like, it's too late, come on, can we do it a different time? And I mean, you really don't have any other time you can do anything, so it's kind of out of your control, and you feel like you're frustrating people, and you wish you could do better than that. But it was also a lot of positives. I mean, people on campus would recognize you, and I'm not going to lie and BS you guys, it's cool to get recognized on campus and have people come up to you and talk about the game upcoming or the past game and kind of talk about your performance if you did well. I mean, it feels good to have that type of stuff. I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't. But there's also some negatives that come with that recognition, and that's mostly the fact that, I mean, people are going to stereotype you as your typical football player, meathead, jock type of guy, and that's really just not true for a lot of people on the team, actually. I mean, there's a lot of people who are smart people on the team, and they have hard degrees, and they're working really hard at both school and football at the same time. And me, as a civil engineering major, I really did take offense a lot to when people kind of assumed I was either dumb or just not smart in general. But on top of that, one thing that really frustrated me a lot is that people really assumed that you were entitled and got special treatment because you were a football player, and they kind of assumed that you were just a cocky jerk, and that's just not the best way to start off kind of knowing someone, or it's just not a good first impression even though you didn't get a chance to make a first impression. So that kind of covers what life is like during the regular season, during in-season when you're still playing games and you're doing all that fun stuff. So let's talk about the life in the winter and kind of winter workouts and what that entails. So life in winter is basically probably the most chill time of the year as a football player. It's very nice, and there's one thing that did kind of suck at NDSU a little bit. We only usually got like 5 days of winter break because we were playing into January, but it was the national championship game, so it was definitely worth it. But, I mean, once school, winter, or I guess spring semester started, usually our winter conditioning and lifts would start up, and you could start working really hard to build muscle mass and endurance. And usually this wasn't too time consuming. Usually maybe twice a week you would have to get up early to go to conditioning. Other than that, I mean, you had maybe 3 hours a day max of football stuff. That's maximum 3 hours a day of football stuff. So I mean, you had plenty of time to get your homework done or just hang out with your friends or take up hobbies, and that free time is something that really just isn't there in the season. So sometimes a lot of us found ourselves getting a little bit bored in the wintertime because, I mean, you get all your stuff done and it's kind of like, now what? I mean, we don't really have anything to do right now. And so that actually led to quite a few, I mean, drinking incidents on the team where people got in trouble for that, and some bar fight incidents, and the coaches didn't like that too much, and honestly, we didn't like it too much either because when we got punished for it, it was not fun. Let's just put it that way. But overall, it was a very smooth time of the year. So now we're going to move into the spring, and this is where some of the struggle could really start. And that's because spring ball at NDSU wasn't the most fun thing. That's because we had morning practices, which are just no bueno. They're no bueno. So you're just out there practicing, and there's no opponent on the schedule, so that can be really hard to get yourself up and at it and getting ready to go. And a lot of time you had a lot of new weight or new muscle gained from winter workouts, and you had to get used to running around and practicing with that weight on you, so it was really tiring a lot the first couple of practices. And on top of that, most of our meetings started at 5:30 in the morning, which means a lot of times you have to set an alarm for like 4:50, 4:55, 5 a.m. to get up there and get there on time. And I mean, that is just depressing when you're going to bed at 10 o'clock, checking your alarms, and it says 7 hours, and you're only going to get 7 hours of sleep when you're waking up at 5 a.m. when you're going to bed at 10 o'clock. And that's really early, and that's very idealistic, because if you have homework or anything else to do, you're not going to be able to get to bed at 10 o'clock. Let's be real. And so this is kind of how my schedule went for 2 of my springs. It was really crazy. I would wake up, like I just mentioned, really early in the morning, go to practice, then right after practice I wouldn't even get a chance to shower most of the time, so then I would go directly to my class. And at one semester I had class from 8 o'clock until 5:30 was when my last lab normally ended. It could go later than that sometimes. So I mean, that is legitimately 5:30 in the morning till 5:30 at night. But that doesn't include the homework that needed to get done. So a lot of times I would work on homework till 11, midnight, sometimes even later. And I also took up an internship 2 of those semesters, so it became even harder. I had to work my internship in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which were usually lighter days, but ended up being just as busy for me. So I mean, the grind can really get to you, and you just become so fatigued, and all you think about all day is, when am I going to sleep next? And when that's kind of what you're thinking is like, when am I going to sleep next? That is just really depressing. And so there was kind of 2 springs where, I mean, it was a month and a half, 2 months of me just kind of living life day to day. I mean, I would wake up, do what I had to do, and go to bed and repeat it. And I mean, it works, because once you kind of get in that rhythm, it becomes a little easier, but it's still not very fun. And it was really hard to stay awake in class when you're waking up that early. It was really hard to be motivated to go to class. And yeah, that was kind of my spring experience. Not the most fun, I would say. And summer can also be a grind, but that's a little bit different, because NDSU is quite different in that aspect, because we a lot of the times had summer jobs. Instead of just taking classes and getting some free money from the NCAA, it's not free money, but instead of getting like rent checks or stipends, a lot of us would work a job. And so kind of our thought process of the program is that builds character, and I totally agree. I think it is great for building character, building that work ethic, making you really stronger out there on the field mentally, and kind of keeping you sharp. So I mean, there were some summers where I would work. I worked one summer in a screen printing facility, and that was very hot down here, because you had all the dryers that would dry the ink off the shirts. And another summer I worked pulling cables, so I mean, that was not the most physically active job, but it was definitely, I mean, a blue-collar labor job where I wasn't just sitting at a desk. And so sometimes that could be extremely difficult, because to do these you'd have to wake up at 5:30, not wake up at 5:30, be to lift at 5:30, which means be there 15 minutes early or 10 minutes early if you want to kind of be risky. So I mean, you wanted to do that, and then you would go right from there, maybe take a shower if you're lucky, and then go to work. And then after work, this is the kicker in the summertime, after work you would go to running. So we would have conditioning after work, and it would be usually 5:30 to 6:30, sometimes it would be 6 to 7. I mean, so that's your whole day. You're waking up at 5 o'clock, you're getting back to your house at 7 o'clock. You got to cook all your own meals, because the dining centers weren't open for the most part, especially our first couple years. So I mean, the grind was extremely real in the summer times, but it really did make you a stronger football player mentally, and just a better human being. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like you just got tougher, and you became like a more tough person because of that. And so I really thought that was a good experience, but there was really nothing better than a summer weekend in Fargo when you had put in a really hard week's work, and so you just knew it was time to chill out. Sometimes we wouldn't have anything Friday afternoon. I mean, one time I was so tired after a hard week of work. I mean, I slept from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until like 9 o'clock at night. I just wanted to take a quick like 2-hour nap, recharge, and it turned into that. I was so fatigued. I mean, but it was really great and rewarding, that feeling of doing hard work and being independent and paying your own bills for a little bit and earning some spending money for the season, because money was definitely tight before the cost of attendance kicked in from the NCAA. I mean, before we were barely getting money to pay rent. A lot of places you couldn't pay your entire rent, so you'd have to ask for help from your families, and a lot of people had to work jobs throughout the school year out of necessity. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but the cost of attendance really helped with that, giving us some extra money to cover rent or whatever it may be. And I think, just kind of to sum up this entire video so far, the hardest thing about being a student athlete to me was just finding a way to balance out your time and kind of know that you had to be focused, and to be able to perform your best at everything, you could only think about one thing at a time. You couldn't be at football practice thinking about school, like, I gotta do this and this. You had to be 100% where your feet were. And, I mean, you had to be, if I'm at football practice, I'm 100% committed to being great at football. And if I'm at school, I'm 100% committed to being great in the classroom. I thought that was one of the biggest things that helped me thrive in both areas of my life. I also want to talk about injuries for a bit and how they kind of affect an athlete's psyche, because obviously, like I told you earlier, I jinxed myself like a dummy, and I tore my ACL going into my senior year, and it was absolutely devastating. I mean, I was ready to go ham and just snap, and you end up snapping your knee. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, guys, it's so hard to explain. When you put kind of your whole meaning and your whole life's goals, all you think about is football 24/7, and the game defines you, and then an injury happens. It really is just soul crushing. I mean, I felt lost and without a purpose for a while, just kind of watching my teammates out there at practice doing rehab myself, and it was just kind of like, maybe I shouldn't put all of my stock in being a football player and kind of let it define me as a person. I know people talk about the game not defining them as much, but I mean, I learned my lesson the hard way, I guess, and it was a good thing, and I think I'm all the better for it. But I think it's important to know that, I mean, athletes, when they get injured, it is definitely a very, not traumatizing experience, but it's not ideal for them, and it really does affect a lot of their psyches in different ways. Some people handle it better, other people it really bothers them, and kind of they feel like they let their team down or they let themselves down, and their goals are out of reach now. And so definitely be sensitive around an athlete that's injured or dealing with something like that if they seem like it's bothering them a lot. Because I know some athletes, I've met some that have gotten depressed when they've got hurt, and I can say myself, I wasn't depressed, but I was definitely like very sad for quite a few months after I tore my ACL. It was really a hard time in my life. And lastly, I wanted to kind of talk about how it's very difficult to adjust to life after football. I mean, one day you're just hanging out with your friends every single day. You go to the dining center, they're there. You go anywhere, you're going to see football players that you know, and then after that, one day it's all over and you're gone. I mean, it's just crazy how it's a snap of the finger. I mean, it is just instant, and your whole life of football is over. Your whole life as an athlete is over, and it's just the transition is very, very rough sometimes. As I mentioned before, if you let the game define you too much, you can definitely seem purposeless in life and not know kind of what your goals are. And I struggle with that sometimes because all of my goals were related to football and what I was going to do next in my football career, how I was going to get better. And now I don't necessarily have all of those goals in front of me for like what I want to do outside of football. one of those things is kind of grow this channel into a community and just kind of gain a following and have fun communicating and talking to other people. But I mean, other than that, I don't really know, I guess, what my main focus or goals are in life right now. It's something that I'm still thinking about, and it's something that it's going to take some time. And also on top of that, I think football, over the years, it's really hard to adjust out of the mindset of you've always got to get better at something. From football, you've always got to look at it with a critical lens. So I'm always looking at film and I'm like, man, I sucked on this play, I could get better at this. And so sometimes you can get almost too hard on yourself. And I think I've done that to a certain extent, and I really get a little too critical in other phases of my life that don't need to be that hardcore, I think. So that's kind of also been a really tough transition for myself. But like I said, I'm still adjusting, and I think it's something that a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to, adjust to a normal life, I guess, a normal life. It's just different, and so it's going to take some more time for me as well, but I'm definitely excited for what the future holds for me and for this channel. So I don't want this video to come off too negative. All of this hardship and hard things that I've talked about, I've kind of been pointing towards the fact that it helped me grow as a person. And if I had to go and do it all over again, I would do it in a heartbeat, guys. I learned so many different things, not only through football, but through university. And not only just those two, but the two of them put together are such a unique experience. Especially being a civil engineer student. I didn't have as much time as other people did to do their homework and all this stuff. So I learned invaluable time management skills being in a rigorous program and also in football at the same time. I think it just kind of has given me a different mindset too. It's given me the ability to kind of just take anything head on and just know that I can tackle it as long as I work hard. The amount of people I've met through NDSU and Bison football and just the university in general is incredible. I feel like I have so many more connections, and I kind of really, let's just look at another aspect of it, I guess. There was nothing more fun than going out there and just balling out on a Saturday with your brothers, making plays, celebrating on the field, having a good time, hanging out with your family after the game, hanging out with your teammates after the game. There was really nothing better than that experience. So don't get me wrong that it's not a fun experience being a student athlete. It is a great experience being a student athlete. I'm just trying to, I guess, point out that it's not all sugar and rainbows. There are some things that are tough, and you have to grind to shine, as they say. I didn't mean to get cheesy like that, but it's true. And I really do think the experience of being a college football player, a student athlete, civil engineering, and Division I football player at NDSU really did enrich my life. Well, that about sums it up for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it and it gave you a deeper understanding of what it's like to be a Division I athlete or a Division I football player more specifically. This video went a lot longer than I was expecting it to, but I think it's good. It's a lot of good content, and it was really not rehearsed, but I feel like I got everything that I wanted to get out to you guys. So I want to know what you guys think. Is this kind of what you expected for it to be like as a Division I football player, or are you a Division I athlete in a different sport? What's been your experiences, if you have any? I kind of want to know all those answers down in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to bring you guys more movies, TV, video game, and anime content, and also randomly some content like this where I kind of talk about my personal life. I really do enjoy those. Also, I'm going to leave a link to my Twitch and my Twitter down in the description below so you can find out when I'm live streaming, or also just find out when I post a new video. I got a lot of exciting things coming to this channel. Check me out on Sunday night after Game of Thrones. I'm going to have an episode 2 review and recap. And yeah, that's basically it for now, guys. Until then, this is Master Menard, signing off.
Now look at the top, I'm going crazy, who wearing the crown? Scoodly bop, doodly bolly, doodly down.